I want to take you on a journey back in time. And we're going back to one of my first jobs that I had. We're going to Germany, as you can imagine. And we are going to one of the largest companies in Europe, maybe the number one company by revenue in Europe, number one by number of employees in Europe, and quite possibly the number one by ego as well. I worked at their corporate headquarters, and it was freshly built. Everything was new there. Who of you has ever been at a Fortune 100 headquarters? Anyone ever have experience? Okay. Even those who don't have their hands up now. Shout out some words how you would describe the atmosphere. What do you think it's like in such a setting? Luxury? Gorient? Stuffy. Okay, thank you very much. Now some honesty coming in here. Okay. Sorry? Intimidating, yes, excellent.
Sterile.
Cold, sterile, okay. Yep. What else? Prestigious, thank you. Thank you for the positive interjection here. When you think you walk around the hallways, what kind of people do you expect to encounter? What? Smart people? Okay, thank you for that positive assumption there. Okay. Successful? Okay. What do you think? Mainly men, mainly women? Mainly men, right? So you can start dating me now. This is the 90s or something like that. So mainly men. What do you think they wear? Suits. What color suits? This was before black was cool, I can tell you this as well. So they are dark gray and blue suits they're wearing, all wearing ties, right? That's sort of the atmosphere. And a friend of mine, Andy was his name, and I, we started working there, and we had a really cool job. We were in research strategy. And we didn't quite fit in. We did not wear the dark suits. We wore the bright colored suits. So you could notice us right there. And about the same time as we started there, the company had a new CEO. And he did something that most CEOs do right at the beginning, and that is they formulate their new strategy. Make sense? Yeah? And after a while, after a month or two in his new job, he wanted to communicate his new strategy. That was pre-internet, pre-email, and the only form of communication he could really rely on was sort of print media, the corporate print media, or the communication chain down the hierarchy. That's the standard way of communication then. And it was actually our job then to help with the communication of the strategy. Unfortunately, we were not invited to that meeting because he invited only the top 100 leaders of the company. About 300,000 employees, top 100 leaders, so this was a big event. And because we knew the corporate headquarters pretty well, we'd scouted it out before, we knew what the layout of this conference center looked like, that these 100 folks would be in. And Andy and I came up with one of our most brilliant ideas ever, and that is, we are going to bust into that meeting because we wanted to find out what is happening in that meeting. We walked up to the registration desk, similar to what it's like here, right? We walked up to the registration desk, and usually there have been no people there, and you could just walk right into that conference center. It was different on that day. There was security there. They took one look at us and figured out these are not among the top 100 leaders of the company. More like among the top 100,000 leaders, if anything. And they turned us around right away and told us we have to go. Now, Andy and I didn't give up there because we knew the layout pretty well. And we also knew that this conference center was sort of a big tower, right? It was a big tower, and there was an underground tunnel that led to another tower in the corporate headquarters. And this wonderful tunnel at the bottom had an emergency exit that led to the garden in the middle, and we knew this was an access route. So we decided we are going to go down into that emergency exit, for us it was the entrance, walk down the hallway to the end towards the conference center, wanted to open the door, and what happened? Alarm went off, was not quite as bad. Thank you. The door was locked. We also couldn't go in there. And at that point, we were really frustrated. We thought, this is it. We're not going to listen to his speech. We're just going to have to wait for 2 months until it comes down the communication cascade or until it gets printed or something like that. And we thought this is not going to work. So there we were at the end of the hallway. We turned around, ready to leave again, back to our emergency exit. And at the end of the hallway, at the end of this long corridor, we saw the CEO come down together with a couple of his C-suite colleagues, plus security guards, and they came with a purpose in their stride that I had never seen before in my life. And they were walking towards us. And at that moment, we realized we have Not all that many good options available to us now. But there were still some choices that we could make, right? We did have some options. And when I reflect back on that situation, I think we really had 4 choices that we could make. And I want to share these choices with you. These are sort of the choices with us, the spotlight on us. We were right in the focus, right? We were right there with the attention on us, not just their attention probably, also our attention was fully on us there. And we had 4 choices. And I want to show you these choices, and then we're going to do a quick poll here, what you would have done in that situation, and then I'll tell you what I have done in that situation, and we'll see whether that was a smart choice or not. Here are the choices that I think existed in that situation. Number 1, walk to the exit very fast, hope to get there before them and leave. And this would have meant running, no doubt. B, casually walk towards them, tell them who we are, tell them what our intentions were here, tell them that we're interested to hear the speech, and let events unfold as they may unfold. C, walk towards them, look down on the floor, walk past them, hope that nothing happens, and go away. And number D, stay at the door, pretend that we're fumbling around with the door somehow, right? And somehow the door is stuck, tell them something about key card not working or something being wrong, and see if they let us in this way. These are, and there might be other options as well, but if we just think of the big buckets of options, it sounded to us like these are the options that are there. Who of you is in favor of option A? Put your hands up. No one wants to flee. No one wants to just get away there. You're on the fence.
Hey, I'm on the fence with that one.
It does sound attractive, doesn't it? Trying to get somebody, trying to get you all to take your hands up. But does anyone at least sense their flight instincts triggered by this?
Yeah, it just seems like you'd get caught running, so...
That's your concern, right? You might get caught or maybe even shot running there, right? Got it. Thank you very much. So there is even more fear in running than getting out of the situation. Got it. Thank you very much. Who's in favor of B? Casually walk towards them, tell them who you are. Okay, good number, good number. About half of you are in favor of B. Thank you very much. Who is in favor of C? Walk towards them, walk past them, and don't say a word. Thank you very much. 2 honest people in the room, 3 honest people in the room. Thank you very much. Now, if you keep your hands up, it's getting more. Stay at the door, pretend you're invited, and mumble that you've lost the keycards. Okay? A couple more honest people here in the room. Thank you very much. So we have almost all the options present. Now the question is, what would you have done in that situation? If I ask you, what should you do in that situation, the answer is probably easier. What you should do is B, right? That's the one that is the best option, no doubt. Because it's the option that gives you the chance to build a relationship. Best case, I admit it, best case. I have to hope for something here, right? Who knows what the guy might have said in that situation. But it is the option that has a real chance to be invited into that meeting, and anything can happen afterwards.
So what did you do?
I went for C. We went for C, and it worked. We got out. It worked in that sense. It didn't work in the sense that a connection was established. There was none afterwards, right? They did the same, by the way, which is they also sort of looked down and everyone pretended nothing was happening there. So despite their different position, it's not that this was the hallmark of courage on their side either. And we got out, right? We got out, so any kind of fear that might have been in our minds was completely diffused, but nonetheless, the best thing that could have happened, which is for us to have a relationship with the CEO, did not happen there. And it was our fault that it didn't happen. It was our fault because we did not take the chance, we did not take the risk of embarking on that possible relationship and giving him or the whole group a chance to react to us in that situation. There are many reasons why we did it that way. What do you think are the reasons we did it that way?
Fear.
Fear, scared,
Embarrassment.
embarrassment.
Sometimes you can get what you want.
Okay.
Mindedly by just, walk the walk.
Okay, okay. So you think we might have gotten in by ignoring him and walking past? Okay, maybe. Okay. What else? I think we've hit it, right? It's fear. It's fear, surprise. Absolutely right. We were surprised in that situation, no doubt. Not what we expected, and that's where the fear came in. And the interesting thing about this situation is that there is a truth in that is true for any area of innovation. Our brain is not made for that situation. Our brain is not ready to handle a situation like this very well. And the reason for that is that our brain is really designed to protect us, to keep us out of risk, to keep us out of scary situations, and to avoid uncertainty as much as possible. So the immediate course of action, the unreflected course of action, tends to be the risk avoidance. And that's the strategy that we went for. Now, here in this lovely room, and when we reflect on the choice, we would probably all agree that there really was no risk in that situation. And I agree with you. In reality, there was no risk. The security guards would probably not have shot us. We probably wouldn't have gotten fired the next day, regardless of what we said in that situation. It's not a real risk, but it feels like that in the situation, and that's the catch to it. And unfortunately, in many situations, we are caught to make that decision in an instant. Maybe we have a few seconds in that situation. And the key for us is to get that reaction right, to make sure that we are really coming up with a reaction that has a good foundation to it, that is based on the right groundwork of us being able to handle that situation. Now, we were not able to handle that situation well. We were not prepared for it. We didn't think about it. And there are many other factors at play. If we want to ramp up our game in innovation, coming up with ideas, handling situations like that right, we need to lay some groundwork. And we need to get ourselves in a position to make those quick decisions well and be good at them. And that's what I want to share with you in the next half hour that we're together here, to talk about what can we do to get better in those situations, with decision making, with the creativity, so that we get further in the situations that we have in front of us. Now, the reason why we're doing this is it really ties together with the competency model that you have here. And I want to connect it with a couple of points in the competency model here. Number one is the decision making. There's a great statistics in the latest book by Chip and Dan Heath called Decisive. He talks about the quality of decision making that we have. And they find that 71% of the decisions that leaders make are made with only one option available. We're making most of our decisions with only one option available. And when you look at the quality of the decision afterwards, whether people think it was the good decision, the same people who made them, when you ask them afterwards, was it the right decision or not, in 52% of the cases, they say it was the wrong decision to make. And that's a remarkable statistic. Because in most cases, I mean, you have to really think this through, in most cases we make a decision that is worse than flipping a coin.
So we should flip a coin.
You'd be better off in those situations. Yes, sir?
I'm sorry, when you say 71%, you mean there's two options?
No, one. I'm saying one. It looks like we're making a choice, but we're really making a decision in the presence of only one way forward.
So it's not really a decision.
That's what it feels like.
But it feels like
It feels like one, right? Like we did in that situation. We chose only the one that really presented us. Flee. Yeah? So we are only really cognizant of one choice in that situation, and we go for that. And you can always make up multiple choices, right? You can always make up choices after the fact, but as you consider it, you're only aware of really one decision in the situation. And that's the one you take, and mostly that's wrong. And they find that, yes, ma'am?
So just real quick, so to beat that dead horse, decisions made with one perceived option?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
Okay.
that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yep, yep. And to improve the quality of the decision making, you need to add options. And what they find is if there is a second option present, the failure rate of the decisions, or the number of poor decisions, goes down to 32%. That means just by adding an option that we consider in the mix, we are getting better at making the decisions. Now, what do you think is the reason for that? Why do you think we get better when there are more options? It's a bit counterintuitive, right? Why is that? Yeah?
forces you to kind of look at them both critically.
You start thinking about the options, yeah? What else?
That calms you down and allows you to make a more, unemotional decision.
More unemotional decision in those situations, yeah? It also tends, yes, ma'am?
Well, as you gave us our options, we had choice and chance to sit here and really think
Yeah.
about them. You didn't.
I did not, absolutely.
You just had that.
Mm-hmm.
now that I look at that, and if I had to make that choice, and you didn't let me sit here and look at that screen for 2 minutes, I probably would have done the same thing you did.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much for adding that. I really appreciate your honesty, you guys. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I would hope if we have more options on the table, that the solution set has been expanded.
Uh-huh.
So
Very good.
that's what I would.
Very good. Solution set is expanded. The other thing worth bearing in mind is that the first option that springs to mind is usually the uncreative, the low-hanging fruit option. It's our go-to solution that we always have, it goes through all spheres of life that we have. It's the same in private, in professional, in hobbies, whatever. We have go-to solutions. And they have gotten us to a certain point in our lives, but they tend not to get us any further. And because they are the go-to solution, they're just not very creative. They're just not very great. And having a second one in the mix just takes attention away from that go-to solution. That makes sense? So innovation helps us in the decision making because we expand the decision space and the solution space, as the gentleman said. Yeah? We're increasing the solution space, and that allows us to become better at what the outcome can be. So number one, innovation connects to decision making. Number two, it connects to the way we develop the business that we're running, the projects that we have, anything that we need to expand in what we're doing. The Challenger Sale, book by Dixon and Adamson, looks at the quality of salespeople for professional services and looks at how good they are at developing the business. He looks at different approaches to handling business development, and they find that what they call the Challenger type is the most successful one in growing the business, expanding a portfolio that we have, or expanding the kind of work that we're doing. The other types that they looked at, they're at the bottom right here: relationship builder, hard worker, problem solver, and lone wolf. Many of us assume that the relationship builder is the best one in that situation because that's what we've been taught in many situations. They found the ones who really excel are the challengers, the ones who are able to present something new to their clients, to their customers, who are able to challenge the thinking of the clients and customers, intrigue them with something, show them something beyond the horizon that they normally experience. That's the hook that gets someone in and develops the business more. So that's number two. That's the other benefit of innovation. If we have more ideas, if we can contribute more, we're able to expand what we're doing more. Okay? And the third one in the competency model is creativity. And I think I hope it's obvious that innovation connects to creativity. There's a clear linkage there. If we expand the number of ideas, if we expand the options that we look at, then obviously we benefit from that. Okay, so that's the linkage to the competency model. And I want to show you now why you are really in a great position, probably better than most other people in organizations, to expand what you can do with innovation. There's a great model, it's by Gary Hamel, that looks at different types of innovation, where we can innovate, where we can contribute something new to the organization. And he has a hierarchy of innovation in there. At the lowest step here is operational innovation. It's the innovation that looks for efficiencies. We tweak a process to make it slightly better. That has an incremental benefit because we're faster, cheaper, something like that, right? But it's an incremental benefit. And it's valuable, no doubt. At the same time, it can be copied very easily through supply chains, through consultants that work in different companies. They just pick it up, bring it to someone else, and it's copied really fast. So the competitive advantage you get from operational innovation is on the scale of days, really fast. The second one is service or product innovation. That's the output that we produce in terms of the deliverables we have. That brings a bit more competitive advantage with it. That lasts a bit longer, but at the same time, that can also be copied fairly quickly on the marketplace. Number three is called strategic innovation, and that's a change in business model. That's the low-carrier airlines coming out with a completely different operating model among airlines. It's Apple coming out with the iTunes store and creating something that was not there with MP3s before, so a completely different ecosystem, as they called it, right? That's the strategic innovation that is there. Lasts even longer, can last years, as we see in the Apple store, that's still not fully copied. And the best one, and that's really where you are sitting, is management innovation. Management innovation is the way to innovate the way you manage, to do something new in your leadership approach. And that is really the best and the highest form of innovation that is there, because it goes to the culture of the organization that you work in. That is incredibly hard to copy, incredibly hard for one company to pick it up and port it to another one. All of us have read about the tremendous things that Google is doing, for instance, in how they manage people. And none of us can copy it, because our organizations have cultures that just don't allow for that to happen, right? So if you are able to bring management innovation into your organizations, you're really creating something that is lasting, that is more valuable than the other forms of innovation, and that can have a tremendous impact on the competitive advantage that your company is having. That makes sense?
Yes.
You with me? Yeah? So that's the golden prize that's out there, and you are at the control levers to make that happen. That's really the great thing where you are, and your chance to bring innovation to the organization. The question is, are we using the right tools for it? Do we have the tool set to make that happen? And the sense that we have is that we probably don't, because in many cases, many organizations, there is a lot of talk about innovation. It's sort of the topic that's always there, and at the same time, it's always elusive, because we keep talking about innovation, and for some reason, it's just not happening as well as we think it should. And I want to suggest to you a new type of tool set, a different focus in it. And the focus that I want to bring on it is, surprise, surprise, the human side of innovation, which is lost in many cases. In many cases, we look at the process of innovation. We look at an IT infrastructure for innovation, and we forget what the key driver for innovation is, and that's us. That's us, our ability to be creative, to do something that's new, and get other people enrolled in what we're doing. There are different behaviors that we can bring to that and shape that and make that happen. But it really starts with us living some of these behaviors. And I want to share with you where they come from, and also why we have the wrong behaviors in many cases, where they're coming from. And let me start by that. Let me start sharing where we're coming from so that you can understand why we are sort of in our own mental prison at the moment. We are in that mental prison because we have a long history of being driven by what we perceive as external forces. For a long time, humankind thought there are external forces that are bigger than we are, and we are subjected to them. This could be in the form of nature, could be in the form of larger beings than we are, many reasons for it. For a long time, we thought we don't even have control over our destiny, and if we believe that, then of course there's no room for innovation. What am I supposed to innovate if everything out there is bigger than I am? That was the belief that we held for hundreds or thousands of years. And it was changed with one mathematician who came up with a fantastic experiment. And that guy lived in Pisa, Italy. And it was discovered when he watched the chandelier at the Pisa Cathedral swing when the bells chimed in the bell tower. Anyone have a sense who I'm talking about? Not quite. Not quite. It was Galileo. It was Galileo. He watched the pendulum not the pendulum. He watched the chandelier swing back and forth, and it was something, a motion like this, that he observed there. He saw this pendulum, the chandelier, swing back and forth, and here's the fascinating discovery that he made. He discovered that the time the pendulum takes for one swing, or the chandelier there, is about the same, no matter how big the swing is. The time it takes for one swing is the same, no matter how big the swing is. Absolutely fascinating discovery, because it's counterintuitive again, right? We think the wider the swing, the longer it should take. It's not the case. It's about the same time. And the consequence of this is that for the first time, it's possible to build accurate timepieces. Because we can actually time this thing now, and even though the swing gets smaller, the time is still the same. So I know the time is the same regardless of how fast this thing is, and if I need to speed it up, I just give it one bump again, and there we go. So I have a fairly accurate timepiece. And at that point, when he discovered that, people thought, that was a real shift in thinking. People thought, wow, we can predict something, and that means we're actually in control. We can control something. We are not just subjected to external forces. We are actually in control because I'm able to predict this. I can tell you the position of this thing in 30 minutes. I can predict something that was unclear before. And this has sparked an evolution of technology that was fascinating at the time. They have built clocks at that time that are unbelievable. The one at the right, astronomical clock in Prague, 13th century, is able to predict the date of Easter 100 years out. Those of you who know when Easter is Easter is the first Sunday after the first full moon after the spring solstice. Right? Just think that through. That's why it keeps jumping back and forth. And this clock predicts it, just in a mechanical fashion. Absolutely brilliant. And it's a result of the predictability that they thought was there. Okay, so that's where they went at that point in time, and that changed again. Then someone came along who discovered something that Galileo overlooked in this pendulum. And that's the second paradigm shift, and that's the one that we haven't fully made yet. There is one point in the motion of this pendulum that is different from all the other points. Do you want to venture a guess where that point might be? So one point in the whole motion of this thing.
Fulcrum?
Fulcrum? It's the point when it stands up here. When it stands at the top, when it stands right at the middle. And the reason this point is different from all the others is because here, I'm sorry? It's not falling. Well, it would fall. If I let it go, it will fall. But you cannot predict it. If I get it right in the middle there, you will not be able to predict whether it goes left or right. I just have to play around here, and we have to probably fine balance it and do a lot of work. But in theory, it's clear when it's right in the middle, we won't know which way this is going. It'll go one way, but we don't know. And this was a discovery that shifted the thinking again, because this here shows that this pendulum that was believed to be the beacon of predictability is unpredictable. It's unpredictable at this point. Now, this seems like it's just a lot of scientific hogwash up here, and it's really just this one silly point, and I can't even get to it close enough because I don't stand in front of it. But when you amplify this point, that's when it gets interesting. When you amplify this point, and that is more like the reality, because no life is a pendulum, right? We are sort of connected in different ways. And when I amplify this point and actually have multiple of these pendula here, and I force it through this upper point, that's when the magic happens. So for some of you, this looks like your organizational structure, probably. The executives are on the inner circle, right? They move most slowly.
Outside's my kid.
Outside is your kid. Poor kid. Should I give it one more kick? Now try and predict where this thing is going. Good luck.
That's because it's bigger than we are.
It's bigger than we are. It's unpredictable. It is unpredictable how this thing will move because of the connectedness that amplifies this one uncertain point. And this is the way how life plays out. There are so many connected things and so many little points that are unpredictable, but by connecting it, the whole thing becomes just a mess. It's beautiful to look at, and sometimes we just look at soap operas completely mesmerized, right? But that's essentially what we're looking at. We're just looking at this mess here. And that is the reality of life. And we need to have a tool set that is able to cope with that reality of life. And when you look at the normal tool set that we're using, what we're really using is a tool set that is based on control and prediction. We're using a tool set that assumes that if I do something now, it will have an effect certain way down the road. And I'm trying to control that outcome in 6 months' time by taking a certain action now. Whereas a much better tool set would really just look just at the snapshot of the instance and try and figure out what can I do right then and there to tweak it just a little bit to get somewhere else that I might want to go. And that's the shift that we haven't made in our thinking yet. We are still in that mindset before that point up there was discovered. We are still in the mindset of we are in control, we can predict everything. Everything is sort of causally connected. And in reality, it isn't. That's the tool set we need. We need something that is able to cope with the spontaneity of the situation and really make us fully present to whatever might happen there. Does that make sense? Yeah? So let me suggest a tool set to you that is based on our behavior, that allows us to be in control of that situation, in the moment, right? Not in a predictive sense, but right here, so that I'm able to make the right decisions in that situation and be able to cope with whatever might come. And that's the tool set that I think was handed out to you. Do you all have this tool set that was handed out there? Yeah? You've got it in the book. Okay, perfect. There are 5 key points that are important. 5 key behavior areas. You're looking for it, ma'am?
No,
You've got it? Okay, fantastic. Wonderful.
Is this it?
That is the one that I'm talking about, absolutely. Yep. You're absolutely right. There's a bit more in here. Let me give you, so it's an acronym, you see it, right? Well, not an acronym, some letters there. Let me just give you what the letters mean, and we're going to fill it out because I'm going to suggest some things to do in those areas to ramp up our ability to be innovative, to be in that moment and become better there. Let me just resolve the letters for you. The C stands for creativity, and that's an obvious one in the area of innovation. I is influence. If I don't have influence, then the best idea that I might be noodling over just has no impact, doesn't go anywhere, right? So we need influence. We need to build our influence with other people. The third one is trust. We need to have trust, and that is connected to influence. I want other people to have the relationship with me, that they are able to take that risk with me, that I don't have to give them the PhD on everything every time in order to move them along on something. They need to be able to take my word on it. Presence. I need to be really present in the moment so that I can make best use of it. If my thinking is 3 months down the road, if I'm always thinking of what happens in 3 months' time, I'm just not here at the moment. I will not make the best decisions in that moment. And the last one up there is risk-taking. We need to get better at taking risk, similar to the CEO example that I mentioned up front, where we take this little extra step more, get a bit out of our comfort zone, and are willing to ramp up our risk-taking score. Now let's take a look at what little actions we can take to get better at all of these different skills. And I'm going to kick us off with a scenario here. Let's imagine the following situation. One of your senior leaders in your organization is late for a meeting, and this is unusual for her, okay? Usually this person is on time, always there on time, but on this particular instance, she's late for some reason. And as you walk into the meeting with her, she makes a personal comment that something's going on at home. Something's not right at home. She makes some kind of throwaway remark to you. And during the meeting, you notice that she is less focused than she usually is. Seems distracted, seems to be not really there in the interaction with you, is not really fully present, okay? What do we do in that situation? I'm going to suggest 4 options to you again, and we'll see what the best one might be. A, keep the meeting on track. Just go for the agenda. That's what was planned. That was what we agreed on, and we handle the meeting as was planned. B, remember it, and after the meeting, make sure you catch her and have a quick conversation with her, check in, see what's happening, and try and connect on a personal level. C, again, remember it, be mindful of the fact that something seems to be going on in her life, and somehow make the day or the interaction that you have with her easier afterwards, so that you be respectful of whatever might be happening in her life. Or D, pause the meeting at some point, whenever you catch it that something's happening, and address it. Make a comment along the lines of, you know what, you seem distracted, and see what happens. Who's in favor of A?
Are there other people in the meeting?
Tell me what difference it makes.
Because
Sorry, I throw it right back at you. So, okay, tell me what the option is if you're alone, and tell me what the option is if not.
if there are other people in the meeting, then I would probably try to make the meeting easier for her.
Okay.
By, speeding it up, but if it's just her and I would pause the meeting to make a comment.
Got it. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
So I have the same thinking, except I would probably go B and D.
B and D. Okay, everyone has 2 votes now, right? So we're going to B and D. Let me just try and digest this here. Catch this afterwards. Okay. And you would D if it's a team. B if it's a team meeting, and C. B and D. I'm sorry. Okay, here is what we'll do. I still want to get your vote here, so this is what we'll do. This is what we do. First vote is on a one-on-one meeting. Okay, let's assume it's just you and her. What do we do? A. What happened to the A's here? You would only do it in a team meeting? Okay, got it. Yeah, that makes sense. Who is in favor of B in the one-on-one? 1, 2, 3. Small number. Catch her after the check-in. Okay. C. Who is in favor of C in the one-on-one meeting? 1, 2, 3. Okay. Or we just have to wait long enough here. Then we have the whole.
C and D, but D is a version of C, basically asking for
Okay.
the boss, like, how can I make this easier for you?
Okay. Okay. And D?
Well, that was that scenario, yes, yeah, I get it.
Okay, and the majority is for D. Yep.
In the one-on-one.
On the one-on-one, yeah. Okay, good. Let's try the group meeting. A for group meeting. 1. B for group meeting. It looks like a majority to me for the group meeting here. C. C for the group meeting. Okay, 3 of you. And D for the group meeting. D. 1 for the group meeting. Okay, cool. My suggestion to you is that D is the best one in both cases.
D?
D for Delta. It's the best one in both cases. It's the one that opens up it addresses the personal issue that is raised. And I would say if she really makes the personal comment to you or in front of the team, it might even be argued that it's disrespectful to ignore it. She takes the first step there. It's not you taking the first step. Now, I'm not suggesting to you go and probe and psychoanalyze here, right? I know there's something going on with your spouse. That's not what I'm suggesting. All I'm suggesting is, in a moment, all I'm suggesting is make one comment on this and see how it continues there. Make the one comment, you seem to be unfocused, or something seems to be up. And don't even ask the question, what is it? Don't probe it, right? But make it explicit. Put it on the table so that she has a chance to react to it, and leave it up to her. If she ignores it, then let it go. If she says, you know what, you're right, my kid is sick, and I just keep thinking of whether he's doing okay or not, then you can still see what the options are. But my suggestion to you is it would be disrespectful to ignore it. Yes, we have some comments, some hot topic here. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I was asking, would you do that if the person wasn't your superior to as well?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, comment.
I would do D at the beginning. When I heard the topic, I'd say, hey, you want to do this later?
Yeah. Interesting. This is also a go-to suggestion, right? Let's have the meeting later. I would suggest to you it's not as good as D, for the simple reason that you're trying to find a solution for someone else, and you don't know if it's the right solution.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
You said they opened the door.
Right. But to say, shall we reschedule the meeting? She may not want to reschedule the meeting, right? Yeah. Yes.
I was more confused at the scenario, I think, that does she walk into the meeting and tell everybody she's late because of personal stuff? Then, yeah, then
Yeah.
I'd say D.
Yeah.
for sure.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So here's the whole point to this. So this is not meeting optimization that we're doing here. The whole point to this is that this is the risky thing to do. That's the point I want to make. And we're uncomfortable to address something personal, right? And in most cases, if we're really, really honest with ourselves, we're shying away from it, not because of the other person, but because there's a risk for us that it gets ugly. Yeah? It's like the question, how are you? And we hope that the other person doesn't say, you know what, I'm really feeling awful because my wife left me this morning. Something like that, right? We hope it doesn't come. Yes.
Point. There's an in-between here. You're sitting there in a group, somebody walks in, they look frazzled. Usually I just simply walk over and I whisper, are you okay? You want to go forward? So
Yep.
it's halfway in between D, halfway in between B, but it doesn't,
Yep.
it doesn't compromise their
I like it.
privacy.
Yep.
And more than that, it doesn't disrupt the whole group.
Yep.
And so it's actually the solution is sort of a mixture of what you.
I like it. Next time I'll go with E and put your solution up. But that's a nice one because you show the empathy, you show that you've noticed it, you've paid attention to the other person.
It's
Yep.
a private conversation.
Yep. I like it.
You respect them, and then you give them, you're empowering them
Yep.
with the option
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Right, and
Fully
in
agree.
our culture, if I did that in the middle of the meeting, it would be, I'd probably be fired. I mean, that, if I did D,
Just to say,
senior manager,
you look like you're,
yeah,
like something's going on.
I probably would be fired.
okay,
I don't think that in our culture would
interesting.
work at all.
Okay.
I'm gonna try it, and I'm gonna tell them that you told me.
And if just contact me, right? I'm Fred Smith. Fred Smith at AOL.com. Just shoot me a message anytime. No, but seriously, I think going the step, so here's what I'm suggesting. I want to focus away just from this particular scenario. I want us to get to the topic of risk taking. If this is too big of a risk to you, if this is too much, my encouragement to you is take one step towards taking more risk in a situation. If this is too big of a step, maybe that's not the one, right? But go one step up on the risk scale, because it primes you for being more able to take that step when it's really called for, when you're really in a situation where you have the opportunity for innovation. And we have a certain comfort level with risk, and it's in most cases it's low, and we tend not to step out of it. And it's a practice to step out of it, to get our own awareness, our own willingness to take risk up a little notch. I'm sure you've all experienced these round of introductions, for instance, where you're asked to share something personal, right? Tell us some tidbit about your life, some hobby, something like that, right? You're all familiar with these kind of introductions, right? My encouragement to you is also when you encounter a round like this next time, step it up. Go up one risk level. Because and I'm not suggesting talk about the early childhood experiences or so. So don't get me wrong here, right? I'm not saying jump off the cliff, right? But if you mentally think of a scale that we're willing to take as a risk from zero meaning I'm fine if it's printed in the Washington Post and I'm all good, up to 10, not after 30 years of marriage, then just go up one step. Regardless of where you are, take that one step up, because that really primes you to be more ready in a situation when it's called for. Okay? Here are some more tips on taking that risk, being ready to take more risk when it's called for, priming yourself for it. Name the elephant in the room. If something's happening, that was the scenario essentially that I presented to you. If you know something's happening in the room, name it. Be the one who has the courage to say it. You will be seen as someone who is stronger in that situation, someone people can go to if something difficult comes up, and it really will make you grow as well in the process. Number 2, be really curious in the situation. It's very easy to come from our understanding from a mind frame of I know it already, I know what needs to happen, and put yourself in the mindset of I don't know it yet. There is something I can learn in that situation, there's something I can find out in that situation. Be curious and explore. It's also true, those of you who have kids, really hard to get into, because we believe that we've been there. We've had the experience, we know what they're going through, and the realities, we haven't, we don't. Being curious in that situation as well is really hard, and it opens the relationship. And number 3, go for something personal. Whenever you can, weave something personal into the situation. Don't leave it completely on the professional level, because you build relationships with the personal connection. It's a bit of a risk, no doubt, and that's the part of the practice, right? If we are able to put something personal in there, it just builds the relationship, and it makes you more ready to take that one step, that one extra step that is needed in a given situation. Okay? So that's on risk taking. Number 2, being present, being really fully present in the situation. Number 1, admit your own vulnerabilities. And again, don't get me wrong, you don't have to fess up to the worst nightmare that you might have possibly encountered in whatever happened. But step up to some of the vulnerabilities that you have. Again, hard to do with kids, great practice. Sometimes we say it's hard to do in a professional place and I can do it in my family. The reality is not quite so. If you really are honest to yourself, how often you're really making yourself vulnerable to your friends and at home, it's not that often the case, because we're just driven by a desire to look good and be right. That's such a driving force for us, looking good and being right. And stepping out of that is really helpful. It makes us be much more present in that situation. Number 2, form an opinion on something and say it. Have the courage to speak your opinion. Doesn't mean that you have to convince the other person of it, but it's fine to state your opinion in a respectful way, in a professional way. State your opinion. And finally, I'm going to tell you a nice example for that, is to relax your mind. Very often we're thinking already of what I need to say 5 steps, 5 sentences further down the road. What else do I need to say? And try and let go of that. Because the more you let go of that future thinking, the more you're present in that situation. It's a wonderful activity in improv theater. Who of you has ever done improv theater? And don't worry, we're not going to do it here, but I'll tell you what it is. I can see already. Yeah, this is not the risk-taking exercise now. Really nice activity, really simple. I would say a word to someone in a chain, and that person says one word that springs to mind there, right? And then we go on the chain, and it goes on. So I start with, I don't know, with submarine, and then the next person would say tank, and so on. So we have an association chain. We go around the room, right? You can all imagine how this works. Some of you might have even played it outside improv. Okay. The fascinating thing is how this plays out in reality. Sounds really simple, and it plays out in a fascinating way in reality, because there are different strategies how people handle it, and there really are certain patterns to it. What most people do in that situation is they react to the word that came 5 people earlier, right? Because we feel we are not in the situation enough. I can't be spontaneous enough to react to whatever the person in front of me says, so I'm locking in 5 person before, and I'll say the word anyway, right? Doesn't matter anyway what I say, it's just an association chain, right? So I lock it in before. And when you look at these chains, they're absolutely fascinating. So he might say orange, and we move on to prison suits and so on. And because I'm still stuck with the orange here, I say green. But it comes from nowhere here in that interaction. That's strategy number 1. It's the most common one. Strategy number 2 is that people make up their mind right at the beginning. So you explain the exercise, and the person says, I'm going to say torpedo, no matter what comes. And only a small minority of people are able to actually respond to whatever is being said in the situation. But that's the point you want to reach. Then you're really present in the situation. So try and relax your mind. It really means taking the pressure of the situation, relaxing, and being able to say whatever comes up in the situation. That's the presence. Number 3 is influence. And I'll start this by showing this model of, it's sort of an influence model that we all have in our minds, how decisions are made. And this is sort of the basic model that many of us have in our minds, how we have influence. We present some facts, we present information, then the other person has some logic at play, some kind of thinking is happening, and then there is an outcome afterwards. We're already laughing about this, right? This is sort of the simplified influence model that we have in our minds. And it's just completely flawed like this. And we use it again and again and again. Every time you prepare a slide that has facts on it, you're hoping for this model to kick in. And it just doesn't work. Anyone ever experienced this? That you try and convince the other person with facts, and it just doesn't work, right? This is not the way how influence works. Greatest explanation of influence can be found by Cialdini, The Psychology of Influence. He lists 7 factors that determine how influential we are or how we can create influence, and none of them, not one of these 7, has anything to do with facts. Something else that's much more important and that I would suggest to you to really practice is reciprocity. You're much more likely to have influence if you are reciprocating what the other person is doing. So whatever their expectation is, go into a front-loaded situation. Prepare for the other person what they would want from you, right? The reciprocity, that's the way to get influence. That means if you want the other person to listen to you, what do you need to do? Listen to them. Listen to them first. Otherwise, if you don't listen to them first, heck, where do you take the right from or the expectation from that they should listen to you? It's not because they immediately accept that you're the stellar authority. It's just not the case. You need to reciprocate that, and it's true in everything. So try and practice that. The listening ties together with it. And then the last one is to show empathy. The more empathy you show, and that's similar to going into a personal realm, the more empathy you're able to show for someone, the more likely they are to listen to you, to follow what you have to say, and to be ready to be influenced by you. And again, when you come to the point of innovation, when you come to the point of presenting something that's new, that's what you need to rely on, not the facts that you might have ready in that situation. Although it's tempting to have these slides there, it's just not going to work. That makes sense? Next one, I'm going to tee that up with a scenario again. Let's take a look at this situation. You promised your team that the agenda for the next meeting would be ready by close of business on Friday. So you have promised some deliverable for close of business on Friday. Yeah? You won't be able to get it to them until Monday morning, 7 a.m. in the morning. Okay, that's the earliest you get it ready. And you also know that you're really the first in the office. No one is going to find out that it's late. Well, they would see it, but it doesn't really have an impact on them. Okay? So what do we do in that situation? Options are, this is just such a small thing, we'll just let it go. I'll send the agenda out 7 a.m. Monday morning and everyone's good. And not address it. Number B, deliver at 7 a.m. in the morning, apologize that it's late, acknowledge the fact, yeah, it should have been there on Friday, but that's just the way it is, and it's still in time for the meeting. So acknowledge it. C, send the note now being Friday afternoon, and re-promise to have whatever it is ready on Monday morning. And D, send a note to someone, copying everyone on it, telling them, you know what, I can't write the agenda until you deliver this to me. Okay. Okay, I get it. Everyone's tempted by D, right? Okay, who is in favor of A? A, thank you. B? Okay. C? Okay, wow, you're catching up to these scenarios here, right? And D? At least tempted by D, come on. Thank you very much.
So I do use...
Ever guilty of D?
I'm a violator.
I love it.
But it depends upon the situation, and that is, if there's something really evil going on, if there's an actual saboteur on the project, I will do something like that in order to defend a group. But that is a 1 in 1,000 chance. But I was just being honest. I have to be honest. But there is a very, very limited, and it does violate taking the high road. It violates that.
I've got a gift for you here. This is for extreme honesty. Thank you so much. I love it. Well done. And the reality is maybe not to the extreme that I've presented it here, but a little bit like this. Many of us are guilty of having done something like this. Well, I have. Let me put it this way. It's just sometimes tempting to do something and brush it off and sort of get someone else involved and blame them for it. Okay, so the right answer here, or the best answer in that situation is, of course, the C. And most of you have picked it. And it's the best answer, not so much because it changes the course of events afterwards, but because it shows who you are.
Trust.
It shows trust, yeah, sorry? Accountability. Honesty, it's right there. And you're willing to fess up to it. You're willing to fess up to something, even if it is small.
Because you don't want anybody waiting for you for
Yeah.
you promise something.
Very nice. Very good. Very good. Thank you very much. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because like if you're like most people, they can get email on Saturday or Sunday. So if I promised on Friday, I don't know they're not going to take some action on Saturday. Just so don't waste their time. And if I'm going to yell at you about something because of my staff, then surely I should be able to own it a little bit.
I still hear the fear-driven aspect of it, what you're saying there. Yeah, okay.
But as project managers, I mean, if the scenario was for a product or service deliverable, it would be one matter. But when we talk about agendas, when we talk about meeting minutes, these are value-added bonuses. These are things that we strive for, but the criticality on them is lower.
And you're right, it might not be important. You're absolutely right, it might not be important. So it's not that much about the outcome that we achieve, it really is about you in that situation.
It's about setting
Even
expectations.
setting
If it's important enough, you make a commitment that you're getting it out by Friday.
Yep.
If you're not going to get it out by Friday, you better tell them you've got to revise it.
Yep.
Because then somebody else has a
Yeah, I just think,
deliverable
I
and
think
they're
it's
not
an
gonna
accountability
deliver it,
factor,
it's
I
not.
really do.
Yeah.
I just think if you say
Yeah.
something, and we're human, we can't, sometimes we cannot do it, but let everyone know.
Yep. And you know what the other thing I would say is I'm fully on board with what you're saying, and I would make the additional distinction that there is a difference between keeping our word and honoring our word. Keeping our word means that we deliver 100% of what we promise. And the reality is we just don't, right? And honoring my word means that I get into communication when I can foresee that I'm not going to keep my word. Right? And that's absolutely fine. And I would say the honoring my word is even better than keeping the word, for the simple reason that if you're always able to keep your word, your goals are probably not high enough. I mean, if you can do everything 100% of the time, folks, you're just not performing yet. So I would say I'd much rather have someone who's honoring their word, and in some cases is really stretching themselves, is going for something that might not be the low-hanging fruit. That makes sense? Yeah? Okay, let me take a look where this is going. So we're on the trust bubble right now. And the key point here that I have as number one is get the little stuff right. Don't just get the big stuff right. You have to do that too, no doubt. But pay attention to the little stuff. It does get noticed. People notice these kind of things, and even though they may be non-consequential, they form a picture about you in that situation, and that's what carries forward.
Can you give us an example of what you're meaning by little stuff versus big stuff?
This with the agenda, for instance. So my assumption in this scenario is that there is no consequence of not having it there, right? So the little stuff, where we can really say it doesn't matter. An email that comes in from a project team member, the way you know already the answer is irrelevant, right? It's always the same guy who asks a question, and you know what, you might as well ignore it. That's the little stuff.
A speaker at the Montgomery County Symposium yesterday
I hit a bad example, apparently.
Said he was on the golf course with a customer and another supplier. The other supplier was cheating in the golf game. So the customer said, do you think this vendor is giving me a good deal, or do you think he's dishonest because he was cheating at golf?
Nice.
The little stuff.
Yep.
Well, go back to the agenda example for a minute. The agenda, it sounds like it's a small item, right? But you have to put it in the context of the project if you're the project manager. And if you have bad dogs on your project, or you have bad dog executives or sponsors, you will get an email the next day that says, you promised the agenda, where is it? What's wrong? Why can't you meet your obligations?
Yep.
And that will be broadcast.
Yep.
To everybody
It will be
on the
noticed.
steering committee.
Absolutely.
If you've never had that done,
Yep.
guaranteed to happen.
Yep.
So,
You're on board.
I'm on board.
You're enrolled. Thank you so much.
Small stuff.
Thank you very much.
It actually turns out to be very
Yeah,
important.
I need to move on, unfortunately. I see that you have a comment, and I'll happily talk to you afterwards, but I do need to move on. What's your focus here? By focus, I mean, is this about you or the other person? Who are you focused on? When I think back of the CEO example that I shared at the beginning, our focus was completely on us. Our focus was on us being clever, adventurous, semi-courageous, doing something out of the ordinary. We were not focused on the CEO. This was really not about him in that situation, and that also helped derail the situation for us. So pay attention to your focus. Are you really there for the other person in that situation, or is this about you? And the last one, be honest in everything that you do. Be honest and transparent, unless it really is just purely hurtful. Right? So if someone asks you, how does the baby in the photo look? I'm not suggesting you don't have to be God honest to the truth there, right? If it's just hurtful, it doesn't matter. Right? I think you get it, right? Okay, good. Okay, last one. Let me talk about creativity briefly. Learn some tools in creativity. There's a wonderful range of tools that you can use to spark creativity. Many, many tools out there. We tend to use brainstorming as sort of the go-to tool. If you want to try something new, I can encourage you to take a look at the Thinking Hats, 6 Thinking Hats. Wonderful technique. It's by Edward de Bono. It sparks creativity in a different way. That is really nice. And there's a whole variety of tools out there. Scamper is another one. It's an acronym that stands for different sparks that you can give a process or a thinking process, and that's helpful too. Scamper, S-C-A-M-P-E-R, right? And the acronym stands for S, I think, is substitute, for instance. So if you think of what you could do in a situation, ask yourself, well, what can I substitute in a process, for instance, or in a project or something like that? And it takes you through these different acronyms and focuses your mind in different ways. So learn some of these tools that are there. Next one, be aware of your choice of ideas. We tend to choose ideas that we like. Surprise, surprise. Choose ideas that you don't like, right? Choose some ideas that you really think are bad ideas. Yeah, I know that's hard, right? So we think we are opening the door to creativity of others, right? And we say we create this atmosphere of innovation. And in reality, we are selecting all the ideas that have any chance of surviving here. That's not a creative workplace. That just is me trying to clone myself onto other people. Try and pick some ideas that you really think you don't like them for whatever reason. And again, I'm not saying pick the dumbest idea, I'm not saying that. But stretch yourself into something that is discomfortable. And the last one, when you ask others to focus on innovation, drive them with a challenge. Give them a clear challenge, an outcome, a result that you want to achieve, and get them to come up with ideas based on the challenge that is there. If you just open the door and say, we need 500 ideas on something, you probably get 500 ideas, and none of them will be worth anything. And there are many great corporate examples where they have opened up the floodgates with ideas, and they don't lead to anything because there's no clear outcome defined that you want to accomplish. So you get all the ideas that have really no connection to everything. Okay? So these are the tools that I wanted to share with you, some easy action items that we can take on these different behaviors. The key for us is to practice them, to get into practice on all these different behaviors so that when we are called in the moment to make that really fast decision and get it right, to be a little bit more innovative, to do something new, that we have a chance to get it right. Because once we start reflecting too much on it, we will always fall back on the completely safe zone that doesn't get us anywhere. So practice getting better at these ideas so that you get it right in that moment. Folks, thank you so much. You've been a fantastic and lively audience. It's been a pleasure.